Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is episode number 2 of Paragraphs and Power Chords. I got Austin Farmer here. I want to share a little intro because this is just like interesting how we met. We both know a writer that I publish, Autumn Christian, Girl Like a Bomb. I'll mention that later because that's kind of something fun that I didn't share with you yet, Austin. And he took a writing class with me. I've done like a few of these online. I do them for money. And I like to teach writing, and I like to work with young writers and teach craft. I did an outline shop and I was like, we were cool. We had a good time doing it. I helped him with his outline. He's a young writer. I didn't really know till, social media that Austin's like a legit awesome musician. Like he's a good musician. Like he's the real deal. And then I heard him, I think I heard you I don't know if it was singing. I saw something, you playing guitar or something. I was like, oh, this guy's pretty good. I didn't know, I didn't know. And then I saw your new band, Not a Robot. And it's like check them out. I can't remember the first single. Tell me the first single.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much, man, for the kind word. Oh my gosh. Such an honor to be on this podcast.
Much love, man.
Yeah. The first single, Got It Good.
Got It Good. That's it. And I was like, I remember showing my wife Lisa. I'm like, yo, this dude was in my class and he's made like a fucking bop for I would say indie dance rock.
There it is.
I'm like a rock dude, but I love all that shit because when I was in this is when I was in college, that was the shit that played at all the clubs. Or I'd go hang out and I'd have a vodka and Red Bull and I would just dance to that shit. I enjoyed it. I would hang out with friends. And there was a cool lesbian couple that I became good friends with, and they would take me and they played all that. I'm hoping that shit comes. It really never went away. Dance indie pop. What do you think? Is it?
Yeah, that's a conversation that we've had so many different times. It's like, man, when do trends finally come back? Is it every few years? Is there some scientific algorithm out there? You know, Spotify is creating the future, right? And controlling the future.
It is. It's weird. I mean, this when I went clubbing, there was no Spotify, man. It was cool DJs that would say.
Oh, that sounds like
the early, the mid 2000s when I was in college and shit. And it was it was big, and you had all those bands like the Bravery and remember them, and then you had the Killers, and I listened to. It's funny. I lived in Claremont, New Hampshire, and I moved to Troy area, and I somehow have the same indie rock station for whatever reason. It just reached Claremont and reaches Albany, and I heard a bunch of great indie rock. It was that or the Butt Rock station,
Yes,
Butt Rock, and I like Butt Rock. Don't get me wrong. I want to be played on Butt Rock, but I don't know. So it's just something you can dance to. I don't think ever really goes out of style. What do you think?
Right. Yeah. I mean, some of the timeless classics for me, I had over summer, maybe it was, being indoors so much too. I kept on repeating Kokomo by the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And for me, it was so funny because I grew up listening to the song and playing it with family in a cover band and stuff. But something about it, the beat was just it's man, this feels more applicable to my life right now. I need to kind of just be in a Kokomo mood or something, Yeah. That was what 30 years ago. I think they came out with it, maybe in the late 80s or 90s or something. But
Boys, man, had some jams, man. They had some jams that still hold up. They had that falsetto harmonizing thing. They were I wonder if Beach Boys influenced emo.
You know what? I think you might be onto something.
I just hit me. I'm I bet you the Beach Boys were Beach Boys proto emo. We're asking the important questions on this podcast, but
these are the questions that keep me up at night.
Yeah. No, they are, man. They are. But so I want to find out first. I always like to know what kind of came first. Was it writing or music?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been playing music. Probably since the third or fourth grade. I took my first guitar lessons with my two older brothers, Adam and Heath, who are also in, the bands with me.
Yeah.
And, back then I was significantly kind of at a loss because when we were taking guitar lessons, my hands weren't even really like ready to find the shape of chords on the guitar. And
That's
my
brilliant.
brothers,
That's
yeah,
brilliant. I mean, that's cool. So it was always music then for you. I mean, that's kind of the thing that's been with you since the beginning.
yeah. And writing, I never considered myself a fiction writer, maybe until about high school. But
Okay.
I wrote short stories and mini screenplays and sketches. But it wasn't until probably junior year of high school when I finally was just like, man, I have like the same type of feeling that I have when I want to perform,
Hmm.
like practicing something to go on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
But I have nothing, I have no shows right now. I have, I need to kind of channel this outlet of like, man, like I'm in my room, I gotta do something. And just started, kind of writing around then. Yeah.
What I was gonna say, like, what kind of influences were music and what we're writing? Did you see kind of a correlation at all between the two when you were younger? I'm always interested in that.
Yeah, from a storytelling perspective, oh man, I don't know how this is coming up on the top of my head right now.
I want to
Uh,
hear.
but dude, it means it's a huge influence. This sounds really funny, but everybody loves Weird Al. I mean, I love Weird Al Yankovic's like.
Dude, he was mentioned on the first episode by Andrew Schaefer.
What?
I think it's great on a side note because it's like Andrew Schaefer is like a working writer. He's the dude that wrote the Obama Biden mysteries. Yeah, he was on the first, and he's a musician too. He was actually like really good at saxophone, and he's like made some music for his latest book. But his goal, he wanted to be the Weird Al of publishing, and he is actually. He's like, as a guy who wrote some parodies, like
Yeah.
he's the king. He's the king. So that's interesting. There's a
Yeah.
Weird Al. This
Yeah.
podcast has a
That's
Weird Al energy. That's
literally,
pretty cool.
I didn't even think it would come across my mind, but yeah, like Weird Al growing up, we would, watch his music videos and it was just it was like, man, like he's like totally transforming the story that they're telling in this
Yeah.
song.
He's a
Um,
true, he's a true lyricist. He's not a like technical songwriter. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like he's not writing melodies, but he's
right.
a really great storyteller. I mean, I never really thought of it like that. To do parody really well,
Hmm.
it really does take a certain talent. We were talking in the last episode how parody does extremely well and satire does not. And I think that's probably the same with music in some degree. It's funny for me, parody actually really inspired me writing wise. The first thing I really wrote and completed was a novel called Everyone Gets Left Behind, which was a parody of those like Left Behind books. I did it in like high school. I think it was like the first thing I really finished, and it was just like parody of that. And I thought I thought all those like Scary Movie was fucking great, and I ended up writing some parodies and stuff. So it's interesting. For me,
Yeah.
it was writing, but for you, it was Weird Al with parody music. That's fucking.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of my first like taste of like, whoa, like you could like these. It isn't just like poetry and rhythm in a song, which I love poetry
Yeah.
equally, but it was just something so completely like turn it on its head. And then I saw Weird Al play, I think maybe in middle school at one of the Orange County fairs,
Yeah.
and it was like it just felt like everything kind of was just unfolding and hey, there it is, there's the story, like there he is acting it out on stage, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess there's some deep Weird Al influences going on
I think my favorite one was the Gangster Paradise or Amish Paradise. I think that's my favorite. And I know Coolio hated it. And to be fair, I get it. What do you have a top Weird Al song like on the top of your head?
Oh, my, this your Anakin guy.
Oh yeah, that is a
Uh,
pretty good one. That's a pretty good
yeah,
one. So for you, it was like, but music was always there, and I kind of envy that. I didn't find it till I loved music. I was like obsessed with it. I was obsessed with like hip hop, and I was obsessed with like obsessed with grunge, and I was like in grade school, like early grade school. I found MTV, and it was like my religion. It was just, I remember writing a poem how like even you know, cock rock, like hair metal, when I was like a kid. I mean, I'm talking young. I just thought these guys were so cool. I remember like I was like maybe 4 or 5 and seeing Here I Go Again on My Own. So I'm like an elder millennial. Like I'm just like I'm in my 30s. Like I was just you know, and I got raised by MTV, and I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. Like that and horror movies were like my religion to me.
Yes.
Much more interesting than church or any of that shit.
And it all, you know, I think art is, you know, it's a very personal, spiritual, and you know, thing. It's like that's where I feel like I connect most to everything. It's doing
Same.
that.
Like,
You know?
yeah, it's become the closest. Like I really feel like that's, you know, as I keep doing this, there's a lot. It makes meaning in my life by writing something and creating a song or helping somebody write. You know, there's just the meaning there that is something close to, I guess, the spiritual. Maybe it's like, you know, it's like a shaman shit. I don't know. I don't want to sound pretentious and all that.
No, I totally know what you mean.
But it's like, you know, it's kind of a form of, you know, especially writing a song, man. I mean, I have to say, like, when you're writing it, I'm curious to ask you, like, there's like an obsessive trance where when you get started, you have to finish it. Like when you find the hook, like is it start with a hook with you, or how does it work with your songwriting?
Yeah, a lot of my songwriting has been beat driven, with starting with a hook. You know, a lot of times it's like, I actually started really playing drums before playing anything else.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you know, I don't play drums well. And some of the I forgot. Yeah, the Not a Robot stuff, I did play drums and synths, but it was kind of everybody pitching in, producing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, a lot of it was just like, you know, based on the rhythm and the hook, and I would find myself, you know, looping, you know, like what you said, kind of an obsessive trance of like, whoa, like getting into the zone. For me, songwriting, at least on my own, would be really just loop based, beat based. Like you keep kind of discovering where, you know, the rest of the song goes and the shape of the song. You know, so yeah, I mean, that's really kind of what drives a lot of the songwriting for like the bands. And but other times it could be really, you know, based on like maybe just one, you know, melody of a phrase. And
for me, it's melody. For me, it's melody, but the melody doesn't come until I hear the riff. For me, that's what it is. See, it's not really the beat. The beat usually comes with the riff. And I kind of started as a rhythm guitarist, and I basically should have been playing bass the whole time. And luckily I am now, and I have a great guitarist. Shout out to Sean. You've heard his shit. Sean's pretty fucking good. But yeah, no, for me, it's like, it's this weird, like, magical combo of this riff that puts a melody in my head, and then that's it. I'm like, and I have to have that first line. And I noticed that with writing too. And as a guy who reads a ton of manuscripts, and it's like, it's interesting too, and we can get a little bit of this about money and how that plays a role. Like my money is basically through editing. Like that's where and I've been lucky to write some joke books that went viral, and I had a good run for a year, and then I freelanced and stuff. But I know like the first line for like that first verse, it's going to tell me everything, you know, it's going to tell me everything. And and the song's already done. Like, even if it takes me a year to finish the song, I feel like if that first line is there, the song's done. I just need that first line and melody. Do you have similarities with that, or what is your,
you know,
knowing when you got something?
Yeah. And something interesting you just said too is like, when you finally switched over to bass, like for me, that's like, I almost feel like, you know, there's a running joke that like different musicians, you know, like different personality traits kind of gravitate towards different instruments. But I think it's something deeper than that. It's like you're able to channel, really using, the rhythm of your bass to unlock the melody. And that's something I can't do. And I admire that, because it's like, man,
I can do that with drums. I never had a drum. I never had a drum inspire a melody. I don't think I can ever think of that. I mean, I'm just like, oh no, it needs a guitar, at least something. But for you, it's like that's the chord, the drummer, and it's interesting. Are you with writing?
Yeah.
Is it more about the style or the story to you? Like, what is really interesting to you as a reader too? I'm curious to see if there's a correlation here.
I think for me, the voice of my first story kind of started unlocking the story in a way. It was like I kind of heard like the felt the rhythm of the sentences and like feeling the energy of the voice.
Yeah.
Back in high school, when it was like, oh, what am I even doing? Like, I'm pretending to write when I have no idea what I'm doing at all.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely been more like, I don't want to say it's primarily been voice driven, but this past manuscript, the voice has kind of shaped the structure of the story.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's what helped me to write the rest of the story.
I mean, it's interesting that Autumn, Christian, who's an excellent writer. I think we can both agree with that. And she's got the voice, and she needed some work on her storytelling. Like, she would just let the voice take over, and sometimes causality would just leave the book. And I'm all about the story. I'm like, I need that voice though, or I'm not interested in the story. So as an editor, I'm much better as an editor than a writer, because I can just see, okay, there's good style here. This is how we fix the story. Where my own writing, I think it's very difficult to have that voice and style while telling like a plot-driven story. It's a very hard thing to balance at the same time. Where music, you just like, okay, it's there, and if it's like as a singer, I'm like, okay, this is also in my range. This is great. This plays to my strengths, which I wonder, do I like certain chords because I can sing them better than other songs? And that's a whole other thing, and it's like, do the stories we pick, do they fit to our own strengths as a writer? And that's a whole other, kind of fun philosophical writing thing.
Yeah, that definitely brings up a good point though. For one of Autumn's blogs that I have bookmarked and reread many, many times, she talks about writing like razor sharp sentences.
Yes.
And when I read that a few years ago, it was like, man, this is like, for me, kind of reading that, helped me to go, okay, on my page, a lot of the words are fluff, it's like, I don't want to say purple prose, but like I'm having kind of sentences that don't move the story forward.
Yeah.
And it's not razor sharp. And when you read Autumn's work, it's like, it's her voice, and like there's always something happening. And to kind of just read a lot of these things from these amazing authors and see it and playing out in their stories and stuff, it's like, it's helped me so much, and kind of like what you're saying with is it the chords? Are these chords the ones that play up the strength of my voice and stuff? And I mean, you guys have such a cool sound. And it's like a unique voice of a band sound. Like, you can tell it's it's its own sound, and that's rare.
I'm so excited for people to hear them. Like, people, I don't know if they'll even be out by the time this podcast is up.
Yeah.
We're like sitting on them, just kind of we're getting ready to do the whole album thing, and maybe we can get into that side of the thing too. But getting back to craft, I was also thinking about the whole first line thing, and I've gotten to a point. I mean, I read open submissions, I'd say almost every day, unless I'm taking a day off. I read them for the class inbox, and I can tell in the first sentence if it's something worth reading. And I think that is something you can also tell with music too. It really, I think those first 5 to 10 seconds are everything. You know, it's very rare that I hear a song. I usually know right away. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like this song or not. It's very rare that I'm like, oh, the intro doesn't work, but I like the verse or I like the chorus. And once in a while, you'll hear a song where you're like, man, this verse is really, really weak. And then the chorus comes, you're like, okay, this is why this song is getting played. It's the major chorus. And sometimes you hear the opposite, though it's usually the chorus that's the strength and the verse is kind of whatever. It's very rare to have like a verse-driven song that people get excited about, and then the chorus is like whatever.
It's funny you say that. I was literally thinking about that last night because I was kind of revisiting some arrangements and thinking about barbershop songs.
Yeah.
And I was part of a barbershop. The barbershop it was so fun. We went to some barbershop meetings that my grandpa was a part of. Mm-hmm. But they had a lot of songs where you would hear the verse and you'd go, I don't even know I didn't even know the song existed. Yeah. But you hear the chorus and it's like, oh yeah, Coney Island Baby. Like that's the jam of the century, you know? But it's amazing how those songs, you know, it's like the lasting part of that is the chorus, but you wouldn't remember the verse unless you heard it, you know?
Yeah, no, there's a lot. And I think I get inspired by the verse. I'm like, I can tell. I wish I didn't send it to you. I have a song called Heroin. I got to send it to you.
I remember,
it's my wife's favorite song. Like I've written Stars, which is this epic, beautiful love song. I'm very proud of it. Yeah. She still likes the Heroin song more because it's a catchy ass verse and a catchy ass chorus that just happens to be about, you know, people that are addicted to heroin. Nice. And, you know, it's funny too. Like, do you think like, there's no way like a song's just kind of meant to be like, I think about like the song Heroin. I'm like, man, this could actually be a great pop song if it wasn't about people struggling with heroin addiction. But that's what came. It was like the bass like do 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 do, and I'm just like, this is about heroin. Like that's what my brain said. I'm like, this is totally about heroin, and I can see the chorus coming. And I'm like, you know, I see like the, you know, kind of Spoon-esque chorus, like, you know, kind of hard rocking chorus. And it just came. And it was just like, once in a while, you just have these like magic moments with songwriting where you just stumble onto this right chord progression. I just like, you know, played this little E string on the guitar that I realized was a bass line, and the whole song was there. And I don't know, I don't have that as much. I get a seed of an idea with writing, you know, and they don't always work out. They don't, that's the difference, where music tend to work out, but like I'll get a hook and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a special book. And then like, it's just not, you know?
Well, if you know, like you said, like, you know, the concept of heroin came from that bass line while you were creating it. And to me, like hearing that reminds me of like what I'm kind of always after, like having those moments where the song kind of writes itself. You know, if you had any other lyrical concept, maybe you wouldn't have written it the way you did. And if it would have been anything else, it would be untrue to what the song is.
Yeah, and you think like, oh, markability and all this other shit, and you're like, oh man, maybe I should have wrote about something else, you know, with, you know, a pop song about heroin's not. Though Dandy Warhols did write a great pop song about heroin. I don't know if you Heroin is So Passé.
Okay.
That's a good song. Check it out. It's a good song. That was a great band. That was a great 90s band, Dandy Warhols. But yeah, no, it's just like, it's weird. I'm trying to like get back into blogging, and I wrote this like piece about craft versus magic. And it's like with writing, I'm all about craft. I'm like, okay, you're hitting the inciting incident here. I'm more gut when it comes to language. I'm like, okay, yeah, this just not working style wise. You know, you need to just tighten this up. I know I just go by the gut, but I'm very much about craft. Like, you know, I've read craft books. I've read books on how to write, you know, and how to tell stories. Like, I love all that shit. I devour it. I'm always wanting to learn. Where music, I don't do any of that shit. Like, I don't try to study chord progressions. I mean, I can read tabs. I just like fuck around on my bass. You know, I learned some songs. I mean, that helps me give, you know, some songs I really loved. And I
Right.
learned them on guitar and then I learned them on bass. And then I just kind of do my own thing. And I really approach it as a songwriter, probably more than a musician. And
Yeah.
like, it helps though, because I have a guitar player who's a total craftsman, also can produce, has a recording. So it's like this yin and yang. And I feel like that works with writing too. You know, I talked a little bit about the last podcast, like when you get like kind of a magician who's just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is cool. And, you know, I would say
Yeah.
Autumn was like that to a little degree, you know, she's just like, she just writes, you know, she adds craft, but it's like, it's all magic. It's just, she's just doing it. And, you know, I'm Mr. Craft. I'm like, okay, we need to, you know, do this. Okay, let's cut this, let's do that. And I'm trying to like, you know, find that balance. For you, is it like, are you kind of like, have you studied music? Is it, you know, do you know musical theory or chord progression theory and stuff like that? Do you know how to read music? What is your story with it?
Yeah, I mean, even, you know, one of my goals the past few months has been to really go back to learning how to really read sheet music. I mean, I can read it if I have a lot of time and, you know, but even though I have, you know, studied with teachers and stuff, it didn't recently click. It didn't click until recently how, you know, these people when Bach wrote all this stuff and Beethoven and all those guys, like they didn't really know that we would be like studying them, and they were the magicians who, like, you know, like you said, like Autumn having that, you know, having that energy, like they just created their art, and they studied as well, but you know, I think there's so much more to music than reading it. Obviously, like being in bands,
Yeah.
we know that, like, even if you are just picking up a guitar, like there are bands that have been super famous that, like, you know, probably haven't studied at all, and who's to say that's not the
Yeah.
right way to go for
No,
you
I mean, music's weird that way. I mean, I told, you know, it's the spooky art, you know, it's spooky. It's spooky because it's like, you can, there's people who can study a ton of, I would say songwriting is the real spooky art, because you can study a bunch of music, you can learn all this stuff, and it's just still hard to write a really memorable song. I would say memorable instead of good, because there's different, you know,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? Like a memorable song. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know how it's always done. It's, you know, and I don't know if some people have a natural inclination for it. You know, I don't know if it's because you know, I can just have a natural thing for seeing what's wrong in a story. You know, I can just be, I can just go, okay, this is what you have to fix. And it's just something, I didn't even want to be an editor. I was just kind of like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at this. I remember editing an ex-girlfriend's book, and she's just like, yeah, can you help me make this? She was a poet. And I'm just like, okay, this. And she ended up getting it published. Like, and then I'm like, okay, I think I should try to make money off this. But
Yeah. So you kind of fell into it starting at that project and going, oh wow, like I have these like skills that I'm just kind of doing it. And
well, it was because I tried so hard to make myself better as a writer. I was so hungry to make myself better, and the weird trade-off was, yeah, I got a little better, and you know, I still got a ways to go. I know where I'm at as a musician, and I know where I'm at as a writer, and like I'm happy where I'm at as a musician. I'm feeling good about that. As a writer, I'm like, I got a ways to go, you know. And I think it's also, there's an age thing where music, it is a youthful energy and that excitement, where writing, I feel like, man, it's like, I see people and they're like under 30 and they're freaking out about like their writing career. I'm like, you're probably not even gonna be good till you're 30, you know, chill out. Like you're playing with house money if you actually get a book published by like under 30, like and you probably found a way to like stick to your strengths and it's good enough. And, you know, but it's an older person's game. You know, a lot of writers I really love and respect, like they don't really hit their stride till their 40s or even 50s. Where music, it's a youthful kind of thing, and you know, it's like sports. I feel like there's a real relation to. I played basketball back in the day.
oh, see, I was never.
I'm a
I
sports guy.
tried. That's
I'm a
right.
legit sports guy. I wish I found music earlier, but for me, I was like, I wrote in secret because like my family, Italian Jews, like that's stupid. You can't make money doing that. They were like old school, and they're like, yeah, sports are good, and I was like good at basketball, and I was like, okay, I could dribble and all that. And I learned a lot with it, but I feel like bands and basketball teams are really there's a similarity, especially 3-on-3.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really unique point. I wanted to talk about I'm playing in a Rush tribute band, and these guys kind of talking about that youthful energy. They have played these songs before I was even born as well. But when I'm playing with them, like it feels like this kind of timeless, like here I am with people who are who have grown up with this music. And I'm watching them play, I'm watching them practice, and it's almost like a little time capsule of like, hey, this is probably how this music has been for them throughout their life. Like there's just a certain like magic, spooky magic, like you said. And especially for Rush, they're a 3-piece band. Yeah. We're a 4-piece tribute band because I can't play bass like you and guys.
Those guys are like aliens. I'm not a huge Rush guy. I'll admit it, but I'm like,
hey, no,
musician in me is just so impressed with the shit they do.
Yes.
It's just like, wow, how do you guys even play this shit?
And it's funny you said that too, because for me, like I growing up, I only really heard Tom Sawyer. That was how I knew, and YYZ was how I knew Rush. I knew those 2 songs, but somehow I fell into the tribute band scene with them, and that's a whole nother fun conversation.
It's interesting. Like I almost see a correlation like with making money as a writer or musician. It's like as a writer, you need to write like articles you're probably not interested. Like I remember I made some good money. I wrote like one about like sperm count and one about like weight loss, and it's like that's where the money is. The money is in weight loss and sperm. Like that's
wow.
You know what I mean? But it's like that's the most money I made writing nonfiction. And you can do that. And it almost felt like I'm like, man, this is like the cover, the cover. And for me, I'm just not into that. Like I want to make my own songs, but I'm like, man, this is just like, I feel like this is like the cover band of writing. Writing articles, writing like I write craft articles, and they pay way less. People want to learn how to lose weight and have good sperm than to write better. Like that's just the marketplace right there. But I never got. I think honestly, because I'm just not a good enough musician, probably.
Oh no, I wouldn't. I mean, you guys are. It's kind of mind blowing, like the stuff you guys.
I can do. You know what it is? I don't have the passion to just go learn everybody. Like our one cover, you haven't heard it yet. It's a cover of "Get Low" by Lil Jon, and it's totally our own song. It's totally our own song. We do a little like. Sean does a little like thing for 1-800-SUICIDE by the Gravediggers, a little riff in the second verse, but it's totally ours. It sounds like Jack White, shit.
Ooh, yes.
It's good, but it's like I don't really like I think I'm just more of a songwriter than a musician, if that makes sense. I'm not. I want to write songs and perform them. And that's what I'm most interested in. And if there's a good bass line I hear, I want to learn it. And that's really it, though. I don't want to like try to perform it and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it's all, just a matter of like context. Like, you were able to pick up songs when it's applicable, to what you guys are doing. And that's for me, like as a musician who gigs and like does a lot of different, like, I mean, if I told you what the different hats I wear in a day, like you'd go like, wait, you work as a talking zebra sometimes? Like it's really funny. It's the stuff I do. But that's the thing, like as an artist, you're doing so many incredible things. You're editing novels and writing your own and creating amazing music that you guys haven't even released yet. Like that's going to be like, I think 2021 is just going to have such incredible vibes.
I'm hoping. It was a great year for being a publisher. Like my latest book totally bombed, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I knew it was going to bomb. That's the thing. I learned, like, okay, when you can see how the meat gets made, I'm like, I just was like, whatever with this book. I mean, I'm proud of it. I like it. But I was like, this is going to totally bomb because this is not horror enough for the horror people. And it's also going to piss off the horror people because it's making fun of, like, all, literary scenes and, the other genre, like, there's no audience for it. Like with Bizarro, that's just not there anymore. And that's kind of sad, but that's a whole other conversation. And it's just like, it is what it is, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to hold my energy. That's the other thing I'd like to talk about with you. I'm going to hold my energy because I want to just promote my music. I'm much more passionate about my music right now than my writing. I was just like, all right, I'm trying to do the agent thing, and my YA. I'm like, I'm just hit a point where I'm like, I want to be read. I've hit that point and I want to be listened. Like, I'm old enough where I'm like, I don't give a shit about being transgressive or being a cult writer. Like, I'm past all that shit. Like, shit was fun and I needed to do it, but I'm like, yeah, I just want to be read. I'd like to reach a decent amount of audience, and this is the stuff I'm into right now. I mean, it changes too. I mean, I wrote some really transgressive stuff, and now it's like, to me, being transgressive is like writing a virgin losing his virginity instead of like, some goddamn crazy gangbang. But on that note, I'm gonna go pee real quick and I'll be right back.
Nice.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're back. I'm trying to keep it off authenticity. So yes, that was a pee break. We can feel like it's in real time, but it's not. Whatever. So yeah, I wanted to get to that. Basically, I was getting at is promoting. Like, I don't fucking enjoy it. I don't enjoy promoting my work. I'm actually excited to promote music, even though it can be really hard because you can just have people who don't care, even if they might like it. How do you deal with all that?
Yeah. I mean, for one thing, I think what you guys do promotion wise, like, is incredible. Like, I admire so much what you guys do. And like, overall, it's like, to hear you, kind of saying that, it's like, man, like, I
want to preface something. I enjoy promoting books I've edited or published. I don't enjoy doing it with my own work. And that's I'm like Flavor Flav of indie publishing. I'll hype you up. I enjoy it. There's less, it feels less awkward, where I'm like, hey, I feel like a carnival act, where somebody else, I'm just like, yeah, this is dope. I edited it. I like it. I put fucking time and energy into it. And I just can't seem to return that with me. Though with music, I feel good about it, but I don't know how to promote. Like, it's a weird thing where I'm cursed to like be able to do it well with others. Struggle with myself in my own work. It sucks.
For sure. No, yeah. I mean, and what I was meaning to say too, like, to hear you say that, it's so telling that you are a natural at what you do, like, all around, like promoting your music, your writing, and I think to hear that, it's like, man, like, you got a lot of different hats you're wearing all the time, and it's really cool for me to hear you say that, because it does remind me, like, it is a trait that, like, people have, and you're natural at that, man.
Thanks.
Going back to like the energy and like the flow and promoting, like I feel like this, releasing new projects during the pandemic has really revealed the energy trade-offs, and that's why seeing what you've been up to has been so refreshing and recharging, because it's like, and like, even if we're literally physically, emotionally separated from everybody, we can't even really be in the same room to write songs.
It's tough.
You go, how do I launch a project during the pandemic or post pandemic? And it's like, what season is right?
It's been weird, man. I mean, this my band thing has been in the works for like a few years, and we knew each other before, where we had like a goofy project called Moses.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't really do much with that. There was some stupid. We did like a Sharknado song, and he was playing drums. It's like, I got this great guitar player playing fucking drums, and I'm writing like all the guitar parts. It just didn't work. It didn't work. And But you know, we got back together like in 2017, and I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about I'm doing bass now, and here's some bass lines, and that was it. So, and we've had to like, but we didn't live in this. We lived like 5 hours away, so it's been like a process. So this has been like years in the works, but it's tough. I'm like, oh shit. I finally found the right drummer, which is man, it's a tough thing to find a reliable drummer. You know,
It sounds
a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's just, it's a fucking nightmare, and it's hard. And but yeah, we have a drummer, and I'm like, oh man, I'm ready to play live shows, and it's just like, you don't know when that's gonna happen, and that's the toughest thing, because it's like, you know, and it's made me sit on this for a little bit, you know, sit on these songs I'm super proud of, and it's tough. It's tough, man. And you just like trying to be patient and do it right. And it's tough to hype a band up in the pandemic, you know.
It's one of those things that it's tough, because I don't want to say that bands and musicians are on their own until they reach a certain point, because they're not. They have the listeners and the supporters.
It's true. It's kind of true.
Like, I can't tell you. Yeah, like we've had so many. Yeah, I mean, it's really like I think what has been the thing that has carried me through the toughest times has been like meeting new musicians and artists, and having people that you can keep kind of like, you know, going on the same journey toward, even if it's like different genres or different paths. Like
inspiration, man. That's what it's really about, and that is the sustaining thing, I think, for artists. Like, I'm not that interested in being part of like a community or a scene. I used to be. It doesn't do much for me now. I'd rather just be friends with different kinds of artists. I mean, kind of what this podcast is. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like I'm not a scenester, you know? Like even when I was playing bands back in like 2013, like I was cool with this like total indie band that we probably would never played a show together, but I was like, I liked them, you know, and you know, in some ways that's stupid. I should be befriending more rock bands, but it was just like, you know, it's hard to find. And but I guess it's like, it's tough to it's a lonely life, and yet it's not, if that makes sense.
Yes, we've seen a lot of different projects from a lot of different musicians kind of evolve and expand to, like, you know, even different aspects of the music industry, like, you know, which has been really interesting to see, like how it's just progressed in a way that you're like, oh, like this guy's now helping doing marketing for like a company now, and he was the singer of a band. Now he has a new project, like a pop duo with, you know, another band, and that really still to this day, it's like it just surprises me in like a really like kind of like wonderful way. I don't know what, like that word kind of just came off the top of my head, but it's like it makes you feel like, oh wow, like this like they're still going after like more than decades of, you know, playing gigs for nobody.
It's finding the right people. Like, I mean, I was kind of like gonna do some like really punk shit, and I was gonna be like Mandy DeSandra and the Deviants. So I was gonna be my you know, alter ego Mandy DeSandra, who's basically in a coma right now, because I just don't even have time to be Mandy DeSandra anymore. And you know, if it wasn't for Sean, who knows? That's probably what I would do, and it would just be kind of some hobby. And like with Sean, it was like, it just opened that world up again. And I mean, I would say the most devastating thing was the band I was in, The Only Prescription, just not working out. I've never felt so depressed in my life. I went all in, you know, I kept working a job that made me miserable because I needed to. And, you know, it was rough. You know, we recorded a terrible demo. We wasted money on that. I mean, it's like music's like the highs are so high and the lows can be so low. And so I really got to experience more of the lows with that band, honestly. Though there were some great shows we had, but it was like, it just wasn't meant to be. And then I tried to make it work, and it just wasn't there. You know, it wasn't the right group. Yeah. You know, it wasn't the right songs. Like the songs that I had, like they were okay. You know, the songs I've done now are a lot better. And, you know, it's just, but man, it's tough. It's tough. We're writing. It's just like, you know, like a book I'm doing, I'm like, whatever. I'll write other books, you know, with a band. It's just like, it's not this, it's like a relationship really.
Yeah.
And it's like, and if you're in it for a while and you've made a ton of sacrifices and it just doesn't work, it's a killer, man. It feels worse than like any breakup. I mean, I was just like, it's like heartbreaking.
Absolutely, dude. I think that, you know, during those lows when it's like, man, nothing is working out, like,
Rough.
you know, kind of feel like we're shouting into the void a little bit, like, you know, when you have a new release, you know, or a new songwriting partner where you guys are putting out this band, like it really, it's like, wow, like, okay, this is the light at the end of the tunnel. You're still going after these terrible, you know, things that
you know what it is? It's not the right time. Like he was in that band, the guy I'm still playing with, but he was like 19 years old and he just wanted to shred all day. And I'm like, this is not working for the, you know what I mean? He had to grow into being the guy he was. I had to grow into being a bass player. And it's interesting, you know, and if this band goes anywhere, it'll be like, well, persevere and find the right guy and grow into each other.
And you said when he was 19, was that like more than a decade ago that you guys, you said?
No, not like 7 years.
I mean, still like, I think,
yeah, he's young and he can fucking play. Like he was like maybe 18. I'm not even sure at this point. He's like young, and you know we just have that right mix.
Right fit, yes. Timing is.
Timing. And it is tough. Like we had the bass player was a nightmare. We ended up like literally. And I love this guy now, but our waiter at our Thai restaurant. We had him become the new bass player because the old bass player was such a fucking nightmare. And I don't want to talk shit about other musicians. Yeah. I'm trying not to, but it was just not a good fit. And I'm gonna try to keep it professional. It was a bad fit.
Yeah.
And the drummer was a good friend. It just didn't work out with him. You know, it was tough. It was tough. You know, it was just like, man, you went all in and to lose, it's a tough thing. And it's hard. It's hard to like go back into that world. You know, I could be the publisher who writes some stuff and it's like, but I'm like, it's in my heart to go back into music. And I'm like, I'm going to do it, you know, and I'm going to see where it goes. And, you know, I got I'm lucky to have like a day job where I actually like it. And I don't have to leave home. You know, I can edit books basically. And, you know, whether in my press or freelance, and, you know, I'm just gonna see where the chips are. I mean, I'm kind of more passionate, honestly, about music than I am about my own writing right now. I'm like, that's not going anywhere. But like, I feel an urgency more with music.
And kind of on the
more an urgency with you with music, or what do you feel like that more pull if you had to like pick one?
Yeah, I would say, man, it's been the pandemic. My concept of time has been kind of all over the place. We just released a new single right on Black Friday, and that felt like months ago.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It's a good song.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah. But my concept of time is like, man, like, okay, we released this thing. Now what do I do? So I like the past few weeks has been actually the past month is like writing every day, writing. And then the other day I was like, I need to do a cover song. So I recorded an entire cover song in like one day pretty much. And it, like, for me, the normal, like, different seasonal push and pull of energy has just been like twirling around, and like, it's like, I really don't know how to answer that right now because things have just been so different. But
I know.
But do you think like that the energy kind of comes in like different seasons?
You know, you had me thinking like, I got a book I needed to get done. I got 2 books done that I wanted to get done. The one, the paranormal romance, that kind of bombed, but I'm glad it's done and I'm glad it's out there. And the big book I care about more is my YA book, and you know, it's pretty much one edit away from being shopped around, and I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to that. That's a whole other world with agents and in that world, and it's, you know, it's a business. But music came to me strong this year. I mean, it was just way more, especially not being able to do it. I mean, we have another album written. Like we have a whole you know, and then able to show it to the guys. And I found a drummer, and like, you know, he was pretty much the only guy I hung out with, like, cause I, you know, cause of COVID. And I was like, I got this drummer. I lucked out in finding the right drummer, who like I published. So I'm in a weird thing where this writer I published, Brett Peterson, I'm in a band with him, and it's just kind of how it worked out. You know, it wasn't something I planned. So yeah, man, I'm just like, but it was just all about like, I don't know. It's like, it's going to sound bad, but it's like, I feel like with music, it's just this like passionate fling, and it can last for years, and then it kind of fizzles out. Where writing is like my wife, and I'm like married to it. I never leave it, you know, it's steady. Music, I'm trying to get to the same place with, you know, I actually like when it's, you know, not too high or low. I think that's a good place for artists to be. I'm trying to totally be like that when you put the songs out, and be patient, you know, and that's a whole other thing.
Hard.
It's hard. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to do some freaking Zen meditation, because this is going to be hard, because this has been a long-term goal.
Do you think it's just like, because releasing songs, you then want to like perform it instantly, where it's like, like,
oh yeah. And
like,
I'm definitely much more vulnerable like with music than writing. I mean, I had a guy I was friends with shit on one of my books, because who knows, he just wanted to shit on it, and it happens, and I'm like, that kind of sucks, but whatever. But if I had like a friend shit on my music, it would suck, but I don't know, at the same time, I'm like, I'm confident yet in what I do. So that's the other thing. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to be for everybody. You know, if you're not that into rock music, you're probably not going to like the Dionysus Effect. Or are you like, you know what I mean? Like, even I was trying to find a publicist, you and me, or help me look for him. It's just not going to be for everybody. So I don't know. It's like, I think I'm in a different place with that kind of stuff, where, you know, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. You want people to hear. You just want to give it a chance. You know, you want things. I think with your art, I'd rather have people hate my shit than nobody listen to it or read it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And like, the music world is so strange, because
It is.
as musicians, we open Spotify and we see a pop artist who's signed to a major label get millions of plays overnight, and you go, wow, like, I wonder if we worked with the right team, you know, could this happen to us too? Whereas writing, you know, like you were saying, it's like, you know, the pacing of releases, and the, you know, working on a novel alone, it's just it's so different, but yet you feel the same like hurry up and wait sensation.
Like, you know, that's the one thing at least a little bit nice about music, is there's some immediate gratification, you know, whether it's playing a show or writing, it's just not there. It's just not. By the time a book comes out, like, I'll be honest, like Paranormal Romance, the way it worked out, it was sat on for so long, because it just became not a priority. I'm like, there's no other press that really I feel good about putting this with. This is such a goofy book. And it's just like, by the time it came out, I was like, it's out, whatever, you know, and I just didn't have the enthusiasm, honestly, like I would have probably had 2 years ago, you know. It's just one of those things. And I grew. I'm like, I'm a different writer now that the book is out. Where music, I'm like, some of these songs are old, you know, some of them, you know, kernels of old, and I still have the passion for them. And I'm still like, yeah, let's get this out. That's the difference. You know, I don't really outgrow songs, but I outgrow books for sure. Like this, I'm wearing an old fucking Great White House shirt. Like, I wrote some book called Great White House. I'm like, gee, I don't even think of that. Like, I'm like, that was like 7 years ago. I'm like, I wrote a goofy Sharknado political satire.
Oh my God.
You couldn't pay me to write some shit. And I'll work for money. Like, it's just not what I'm into anymore. I'm not into like satire and shit anymore. So it's like, writing's different in that way. It's never a good time. It's just, everything takes too long.
Yes.
You can change in a year as a writer, what you're proud of, what you're into, you know, and you try stuff and it doesn't work out. I don't know. I mean, music hurts more though if it doesn't work out. I will say that it hurts a lot more. And I mean, it'll suck. I'll be honest. Like, if we don't find an audience, I'd be like, man, what the fuck? You know, I feel like these are pretty good, but there's no guarantees. There's never a guarantee in art. And that's the thing we all have to remember. And it's a shitty thing to remember. It's like, there's just no guarantees. The most success I had was for a fucking Crocoduck book, and it's a stupid ass book. It's a great stupid ass book. You know what I mean? Like, it was a great joke, and it was the right joke at the right time, and
it's just refreshing to hear you talk like this, because like I can't tell you how many times like I'm feeling these like emotions of not I don't want to use the word patience, but like of like, oh my gosh, like what if we don't find the right audience? What if this isn't the right timing for this genre?
Yeah, and you just gotta fucking do it. I mean, it's just like, look, it's like, if it's quality, I mean, you've had listens. I think one of your songs, it was like 60,000 or something.
Yeah,
you got listens. Like, that's the thing. Like, like you're not, obscurity is my fear as an artist. Like, I don't give a shit about selling out. I don't fucking care. Obscurity sucks, because I went through like being obscure to not being obscure, and it's nice. It was nice to have people, even a bullshit book about Crocoduck. It was nice to like have people, even people making fun of it. I actually was like, cool, that's great, enjoy it. It's a joke book. And it's nice. It's nice to reach people and have some kind of effect. And it did. I mean, I'll keep it real. Like, it definitely had an effect on the writer Chuck Tingle. He started writing political erotica all of a sudden, and it was great. He fucking killed it way better than me and Mandy. So, I mean, that's great. It's great to be able to have a conversation with other artists, even if you don't really talk. It's like, it's cool to like have an influence on Chuck Tingle, and it was kind of fun. It's like, people are like, oh man, are you jealous? I'm like, no, I don't want to be Chuck Tingle. I'm glad he's Chuck Tingle. He's better at it. I'm glad to have a little bit of an influence on him. I'm glad political erotica became a thing. I'm burnt out by any kind of political art right now. That's a whole other story. But yeah, no, but you have to kind of face that void of, okay, and it's not a fair void. The void is not fair. That should be a book title. The void is not fair.
Speaking of timing too, like, the amount of time it takes to open up a song on Spotify and listen to it, it's 4 minutes. And maybe that also is a factor where, like, because music has such an immediate effect, like you hear a song and you're like, whoa, like this is what I needed to hear in this moment, and when you face that vulnerability and of the obscurity, it's like you never know until you put it out. But I have full confidence for you guys that you guys are going to freaking rock it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Like, in my car, when I was listening to what you sent me, like, it felt like I was at a rock show, and like not being able to go to rock shows and not being able to play shows for what will be pretty much a year, it was like, oh my gosh, like this is like feeling me right now. This is like, it was like a really recharging moment where I was like, yeah, like this.
That's the whole other thing. When you're doing something like rock, it's all about timing. Like, the minute, if there's a rock revival, I feel pretty good. If there's not, what are you gonna do? It's like, I mean, I have some indie songs, but it's like, I mean, I'm trying, I love rock music at my core. I love 90s and early 2000s music. That's kind of my favorite stuff, and I definitely was influenced by all that. And you can hear it in these songs. And at the same time, it's like, the only solution is to write more and to make more. And it's like, I'm kind of just like, okay, I feel really good about this next album. Like, I'm just like, hey, this album, I just want to find some fans, but that's the only solution I've had. I remember my first book coming out, which ended up winning an award, The Passion of Christoph. It's out of print. It won a humor award. It didn't sell. It didn't really sell. It just, it's the way it worked out. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't know you needed, it needed a major platform. And I switched my website over to, from WordPress, which was like doing really well, to like a regular website. I lost all those WordPress people that were like my fans, and it didn't work. It didn't work, but it ended up winning an award, so what can I, you know what I mean? Like, you just kind of go with it. And like, the only thing I could do was just write another book, and I write another human book. And, I just kept going, and I tried different things. I think that's the only control you can have, is you just keep creating and learn from it. And I think there's that balance. I mean, as you get older, I think it's harder to just not, I mean, I was talking to my drummer, and it was like, yeah, it's just he calls it, it's just like jizzing into the void, and it's like I don't want to really jizz into the void anymore. I'm kind of done with that.
You want to create a new work
Yeah.
of art where like especially nowadays, like that's something that has been on my mind, like technology, fueling art, and it's an exchange. Like if we're always shouting into the void and like putting our stuff out, you do feel a certain like depletion of energy, like going back to the energy conversation, like and now that you're gearing up for the release, like I have confidence hearing the songs you sent me, like you guys are going to feel totally like validated and like for what the hard work you've been doing since 2017 and obviously long before that too.
Yeah.
Like I am stoked for you.
It's been a
it gives me energy to hear and see what you're doing.
Likewise.
All around. It's like,
and that's all you can do. You just keep going, and I'm excited. We'll record next year as a full band. Like this will be a 3-piece band. It's not just Sean on drums. It's a miracle that he was able to play drums that well, as a guitar player first, but he's a special musical talent, and it comes down to that. I mean, it just comes down to like finding the right, I think that's the most, if I've learned anything about music, it's finding the right person. It's just, you got to find the right people, and you do need people who believe in what you're doing, but you also need people who can, keep their shit together too. I mean, that's a thing. Like, you have to be, it sucks. Like it's not the 80s or 90s anymore. Like nobody's throwing a bunch of money at unsigned bands right now. It's not happening.
There's no A&R real development where they help.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. Like they're, the kind of crazy party bands, it's really hard for them to make it because you have to kind of be a business person to some degree. You have to have your shit together, at least to some degree. Like that shit's gone. Like the heydays of like just Motley Crue shit. You can't really do that anymore as a band. You have to treat it like some kind of job and have some kind of job at the same time, right? Because you're not going to make a bunch of money at first. And if you do, it's like, I mean, it's pretty much getting songs licensed and if you're lucky, you can play shows that you have a big enough audience, but that takes time. It's way like, that's the thing with writing. And this will look bad. Writers have it way less bad than musicians. I'll be the first to say that.
It's a really strange world when, as for me, like a gigging musician, doing cover band stuff and original projects, there can be kind of an endless quality about it where it's like, oh my gosh, like, here we are, focusing on this project, but it's an investment for the future. But my other job is a part-time job that helps me get through the waiting period.
Yeah.
And for writing, I think, there's also that element for sure. It's a different, I think, because the performance element of being in a band, having to be in front of people all the time playing your music. I mean, there's so many similarities, obviously, but I think there's just different compartments of like frustration for each job. They all overlap, but like doing music, the lows are low, as you said, and the highs, for me.
The highs are worth it though, man. Yeah. I mean, I will say this, I can remember playing our second show as the only prescription. We were the miserable dysfunctional band. And it was just like some cool people came out and we just played well. And that will top all the misery that I got from that band. And it's harder to feel that, in my brain, it's easier to remember the misery, whether it's a relationship or a thing, but man, playing a good live show for me, nothing beats it. I can get all the acclaim in the world for a book. It will not top playing a great live show. And the audience, I think that's what keeps me going back. And it's hard that I don't even have the chance to do that right now. You don't even have a chance to be bad. Like our first show was so bad. And then it was like our second, I think it was our second. And it was like, hey, we were actually good. We were good. We played well. We didn't make the same mistakes. It is athletic like in a way, you learn from bad shows. They're the best they hurt, but they're the best teachers.
Dude, I think I can, hearing you talk about like the highs and the lows, there is a literal buzz that after the show, like especially if it's a good one, like I like can't sleep until super late, and it's like, wow, like I don't realize until the next day when I kind of feel like I'm waking up out of like a gig hangover in a sense, where it's like, whoa, like I played a show last night, like it went over well and people were rocking out, and like to me, like you said, when there's no better feeling than getting off than being on the stage and kind of like just being there, like in the moment.
It's the best thing, man. I mean, it's weird. It's like, I don't know, but like writing, there's a steadiness that I really love, that I won't get with music. There's just this like discovering the characters, keeping it going, the magic of continuing a book. Like for me, it doesn't really get, my process is like, it's not really till the third draft that I really can see the book. I'm a drafter, and it's a great process. It's just it's meaningful to me. Like I just feel bad when I'm not writing.
Yes.
That's the difference. I can go without playing music for like 2 weeks and I'll be all right. It'll suck, but it'll be all right. But with writing, I can't. It's something I need to do, and that's the weird juggle for me, at least. It's like I need to write. I don't need to play music. It's a weird, even though I enjoy music more easily, and I enjoy songwriting more, it's not that like thing I need to do all the time. After like a month, I'm like, oh fuck, I need to play some music. But it's like, it's different in that way. There's something steady about writing where, if I get old and I'm just like, I don't want to play music anymore, I'll be okay. I'll be writing, I'll miss it. But you know what I mean? It's like an athlete. I think for me, at least, it's like, okay, I'm old now, but you can still play now when you're old. I don't think that really matters as much, but
good point. It's, I feel when I have written and when I'm writing and I don't worry about what I'm writing, it's that steady, like, oh, like I'm actually doing this. I'm building up my word count. I'm actually putting in, the little, the investment of there are the words. And even if it'll be reshaped, like I put in the work. And for music, there's so much hurry up and wait. Hey, pack your gear up into the car and go to the gig. And now you got to wait. And now it's showtime. Okay. We did the sound check.
The adrenaline is just, oh man, it's so hard to go to sleep after a show. And I almost missed, I hate not sleeping. Like it fucks me up for like 2 days, but I miss that. I miss that, where you just can't come down and you got to do something. I mean, I won't lie. The ego stuff is nice. You get people like, and you get that kind of acclaim. I mean, you can't get really. I've learned not to get attached to that shit though. Like I don't. That's the thing. If I actually go somewhere in my music, I'm in a total good, healthy place for it now. I could handle it. I don't know if I could handle it 7 or 8 years ago. I could have just done the cliche drug groupie thing and just lose myself into it. Where I don't have that now. I'm very happily married. I just want to like play. It's like truly about the music for me. It's not even about the ego shit. I'm just like, I just want to play some shows and just feel that audience again. I want to help, revive rock. I'm like, I really feel that, I miss,
man. That'll be
there's not as many rock, I want to get excited about rock music again. And I listen to myself. That sounds terrible, but I do. I like to listen to myself when I work out. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just like, so I don't know. I'm excited about the next year. I'm gonna probably I'm doing this podcast again because I'm just like I need to connect with people, and it can't just be for work. Like I connect with writers all the time, but it's like work. It's my job now.
Yeah.
Like I need to connect with some. I'll probably interview some of my own writers I publish, but but this is cool, man. No, I mean
I admire so much what you're doing, and like as a musician who is in a different place with my writing as well, like seeing what you've been doing and how you do it, and like the original, like the stuff you guys are doing, it's like I look at it and go like, hell yeah, like this. Like,
I
I get this.
really hope that this people are like, oh man, this is gonna be good, and then it doesn't hit. They're like, oh man, I thought Austin said this was good. No, I'm fucking around.
Hey man, pin
No,
it on.
yeah,
It
I'm
all
blame
comes
you.
back.
Like if this songs don't work, but no, it's cool. I mean, I'm just like it just kind of happened. I'm like, oh man, I think I actually made a good rock album, and I even have a better one coming out next. So I might as well do it. Fuck it, and
Novelist, songwriter, performer. Yeah, you guys, it's gonna be a great year.
I mean, it'll be cool. It's a very full circle, with and it's interesting now. Like I always wanted to get like mentored in the art world, and it just never happened for me. It just never I never had somebody like, oh, let me take you under my wing. Actually, you know what? That's not true. That's not true. I had a shout out to, I'd love to get him on the show, Stephen Mitchell. He wasn't like a mentor though. We were two guys who would meet up at a diner and we talk writing, and he was involved in
That's my favorite.
he was the closest I got to it. I kind of wanted like a publisher, and it's weird. I ended up having to be that guy to mentor others. It's like what you want, sometimes you have to give. And if you give it, you don't need it yourself. Like I've become like the mentor. I've become the dad for a lot of different artists. And I always wanted the dad, for me as an artist and to get all that shit. But I've become the dad, and I like being the dad. And I've had to learn to be the dad to myself, so to speak, as an artist as well. I had to learn that skill, and I feel good that I've learned it. It is good to be self-sustaining. I think that's important in this industry,
I've been lucky here in San Diego. I know I mentioned it. Some of the, the writers, Jonathan Mayberry, Scott Sigler, Peter Klein, Henry Hertz, like all these guys giving their time in the same capacity, like you were saying, like at a diner. They have, their different meetings. One of them is the Writers Coffee House. I've learned so much. Like I probably can't verbalize like it. Like I feel like I have leveled up in a Pokemon game. I could see myself like slowly leveling up, with just, kind of being surrounded by that, and going there as somebody who's attending, wanting to learn. Like it's just so your work. Yeah, I mean, what you're doing, I'm sure has help people in ways that you might not even know.
Yeah, that's nice. It's nice to give back. I mean, I just see that as something that's very meaningful to me. And yeah, doing this podcast is like, man, I barely have time for anything else, but it's like, I feel it. I feel like these next 4 months are going to be rough, and I want to be able to connect with people, because I know that's going to be hard. Like I'm itching to get back to shows, and I'm just like, that's not going to come for a while. And this was just a way to like, let me stay sane, stay connected with people. I mean, there'll be other, people on. I want the show to be like something that's, you don't have to be just famous writers. Like I like that I had Andrew Schaefer, who's like, dude sold like, I don't know, 500,000 books, some shit like, like he's a real deal working writer. His wife's incredible too. And he a good musician too. But like, and you're just like you're in the beginning of your writing career while you're still like steady as a musician. Just you're doing your thing, you're killing it with your music. Like, the writing for you is just like the sprinkles on the Sunday, and that's awesome.
Steady pace, hoping to inch there, level up, and
just keep going.
I was thinking of the Writers Coffee Houses. The first time I went, I just had this because I wanted to start reading.
Oh, Books of Blood, hell yeah!
Rob from Mysterious Galaxy. The first time I think I really went there, I asked, hey, like, can you guys recommend me like, one of your favorite like books? I'm really into like horror and Stephen King and Ray Bradbury, and he pulled this out of one of the bookshelves, and I had never read any Clive Barker. I've never seen the movies. I know who he is. I know his characters. Yeah. You read Books of Blood Volume 1. I have 2 volumes left, and like this, like I want to aspire to to one day in my life write with that like you were saying, like the magician, like magical quality of like some of these guys are like just freaking wizards, and it's like
he's a special writer. Clive Barker is a special writer. Yeah, he's definitely inspired me. He's what I look for when I'm going to want to publishing horror. I'm like, if you have a Clive Barker-esque voice, I'm like, I'm in. I'm definitely in. Yeah, he's special, man. He's
Dude.
really good. But so,
Yeah.
man, I think this has been a good one. This has been a good time. I think
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be
yeah.
on this and just talking with you, hearing what you're doing and like your views on the lifestyle of pursuing this. Like, I can't tell you how refreshing it is, and like really just gives me a little boost and a light of like, hey,
I think there's optimism needed in art. Not to like talk over you, but it's like, I appreciate that. Like it's so easy to just say all this is miserable and it sucks. Like that's the easy route. Like cynicism is it just bores the shit out of me now, man. I'm fucking bored by cynicism. I'm like, yeah, I can. It's easy to be cynical. It's easy to just be pissed off all the time. But to find that good energy that's more interesting to me, And I think what your music's doing, I think you guys are killing it. Like I think I can see you guys like starting to open up for like bands that are like got fans and shit. Like so I'm crossing my fingers for you. Like I Metric, something like that, like something that like the kind of fun, dancey like rock or indie shit. I can see that. I can definitely see that, That first single, man, that really was like I was really impressed by that. That was like a nice hook. My band like hates shit like that. They're rockers. Like I have to like, and we have like a pretty good dance song too. And I've had to like push them like, like I'm like, trust me, it's good to have a few of these. We want to have a few pop dance songs, but they're hard. They're rockers. Like both of my, my drummer and my guitar, they're rock dudes. They're fucking rock. That's where their heart is. And my heart's kind of half in indie and half in rock, and that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, no, I mean, it's cool. It's cool to, meet other musicians and writers. I mean, I think that's what makes it meaningful. Like for me, it's the personal connection. Like a lot of people get something out of being part of a community. That doesn't do anything for me. That's whatever. But like, for me, it's like having those individual connections. Those are much more meaningful to me because they last. Because I've seen scenes come and go, and it's sad. I mean, I've been part of scenes and they're just like, they're there 1 year and then they're kind of coming out in another. So the connections matter to me more. And so, I mean, I'm excited. Like, I'm excited to see what you do with writing, and, you got no pressure there, man. Just enjoy it, just enjoy it. Keep doing, I mean, balance those bands, man, because you got some good stuff going on.
Thank you, man. I can't wait for the world to hear your music coming out, and
likewise, man.
Can't wait to pull it up on,
Yeah, I know. I can't wait for that Spotify day, man. I can't wait.
Like when you, like there's something special about, for me, being in a car, driving, blasting the music, driving safely, but having the music at a very nice level, and it's just there's a moment there, and like, dude, you guys, there's a lot of good vibes for 2021.
Definitely. No, I'm feeling much better about the next year than this. I'm ready for this one to just fucking end. It's been a really strange year. It's been like the most productive year of my fucking life. Like, no doubt. Like, I've been so fucking productive. And I'm fortunate. I'm privileged that I deal with misery and isolation with working, and there's other people that can't do that. And I get that, I'm not like some fucking king or, special person. It's just, I'm lucky that that's how I dealt with, like, I ended up digging a fucking pond that I still have to figure out how to make work, but that's how I deal, with
you do.
Yeah. So where can, for especially the people who are the audio listeners, I'll have some links on the YouTube when I put this up.
Sure.
What are some links where they can find your work?
Yeah, you can find me at austinfarmerauthor.com. You can find some of the music on Spotify. We have Not a Robot, the other band we're going to be releasing new music. I would love to send your way to Island Apollo, coming out. Super Weapon with Scott Sigler and Sevi, amazing. Lullabies with my boy Peter Gilroy, and we've known everybody since high school, like just an amazing group of people. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. And I appreciate you, giving the shout out. Like,
this is good, man. No, I'm like, I remember us talking. I'm like, yeah, you got to be one of my first guests. Like,
dude,
it's cool. Like we really, I mean, it's just kind of a blessing. Like I was like, this guy knows his shit. This guy knows music. Like, so it was cool to, get some feedback from you. I'm still in that stage of getting feedback and sharing the songs with people I trust and learning thinking about how to market it and all that other stuff too. And, I'm in that process, and you got your shit out there, and people are digging it, and it's really cool to see. It's inspiring.
Really seriously, dude.
Much love, man. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up. This is episode 2 of Paragraphs and Power Chords. And I don't know when the schedule will be, so I'm not going to say it yet. So, but keep on the lookout on whatever channel you check this out on. All right. Peace out, everybody.